the name of that?
Secret Love.
Hmm.
That's Hank Garland's.
Oh, okay.
Or my attempt at Hank Garland's solo. That's when I was a young fella in my teen years. Dad worked with a fella down at the Mead. His name was Igeary Pierce. And Igeary found out that I was a guitar player, or trying to be learn how, and he came over to the house one day, and he brought me a record of Hank Garland. First record I'd ever seen or heard of the guy. And it was that album, Velvet Guitar. It came out, I guess, in the early 1960s.
Okay.
And he says, I want you to learn some songs on this album. He said, I don't care which songs you learn. I just want you to learn some of these songs. And he even gave me a guitar to learn them on.
Great.
He had a Gibson Birdland, and he left me the guitar and the record album and said, learn these. And for months, I worked, on that. And eventually I did learn a few, halfway. And Igeary Pierce. And, well, this is how dumb I was. I tell people I was the dumbest kid you ever met, and they don't believe me when I tell them, but I was as dumb as they come, when I was 16 or 17 years old. I had a part-time job at Peterson's TV shop downtown after school. I was in high school. And so I worked part-time at Peterson's, and I rode the truck, did deliveries and pickups, and eventually I got inside, and did a little repair work and, learned some of that off of some of the fellows. And one of the guys I worked with on the truck was Mac Blevins. And, I was just a kid. I didn't know him from anybody. Mac Blevins, Well, Mac was into music, and, he liked steel guitar. He had a steel guitar, and I saw a steel guitar in the back of Peterson's van one day, and I said, what are you doing? You going to start playing the steel guitar? He said, no, that's Mac's. Blevins. And I think it was a showbud, kind of a, a high-end thing at the time. This was back in the 70s, mid-70s. And so I said, Mac, I didn't know you played. He said, yeah. And I said, well, I play the guitar a little bit. And he started going on and telling me about I think it was his uncle or his cousin, Walter. And Hank, that was kind of a big player, and I didn't know who he was talking about, just being a dumb kid. Walter who? Well, he was talking about Walter Garland, Hank Garland. I forget if it was his uncle or his cousin. Now it's been too long, but he was, akin to him.
Right.
And so I just, forgot about it and went on for like the next 30 or 40 years. And I never thought about it again. Until one day I was sitting around home here and the phone rang, and it was one of his boys, Steve Blevins. Looked me up because I had, unbeknownst to me, had gotten a hold of his dad's old Tascam 88, his studio machine, 8-track, half-inch. Through another trade with some fellows up in Bristol, George Tipton, the Tipton boys, George and Chuck. George. And he had tracked me down, and I didn't know. I just thought it was a multi-track machine, and I'd traded George out of it for something. At that time, I was making CDs and playing out and doing, the music scene full time. And so he said, "Yeah, I'm Steve, and I want to ask you about that machine." I said, "Well, I got one." He wanted to buy it, so I sold it to him. By then I had an Otari, so it was just kind of sitting there, and so he, "Come on over, I'll sell it to you." So he bought it off of me. And then he said, "Well, that used to be in my dad's studio." "Well, who was your dad?" "Mac Blevins." "Mac, well, I used to work with him 40 years ago, when I was a kid at the TV store downtown.
Yeah.
And I used to ride around in the truck with Mac, and he would tell me all these stories about his famous relative. It's either his uncle or his cousin, I can't remember now. And I said, "Who is that fella that he used to talk about all the time?" He said, "That was Hank Garland." I said, "You mean the Hank Garland?" He said, "Yeah, the Hank Garland." And, I said, "Well, I never put two and two together that that's the Hank he was talking about way back when." When we were out riding around picking up TVs and delivering TVs. And so Steve, being Steve, he got on his phone and called somebody. And he said, "Play me some Hank Garland." And he held the phone over, and I played this little tune. And I didn't know what he was doing, and he got done. He handed me the phone, and it was Billy Garland and his wife. I forget his wife's name, but I remember it was Billy and his wife down in Florida. I'd played that tune over the phone. He said, "This is Larry, one of my friends that knew Dad and way back when." And I just, surprise of all surprises, I was playing one of Hank's songs for his brother over the phone, and I didn't even know it until I did it.
That's quite a story.
It's funny
Well,
things work sometimes.
Well, at
This
least
crazy world.
yeah.